For this last hand, again, we're trying to compare and contrast whether online is rigged or live is rigged or neither are rigged. My vote is neither are rigged. It's just a matter of whether you're playing good, bad, or just get coolered. So in this hand, the villain is the effective stack at about 115 big blinds. Heroes in the cutoff with queen of clubs, jack of clubs. Under the gun and middle position end up calling. We decide to raise to 4 big blinds here. Probably could have gone a little bit bigger, but we just, you know, went a little smaller. That's the way we'd been playing all night. This was from a while ago. I probably would now go a bit bigger, probably 5 to 7 big blinds with the limpers. Anyway, the small blind ends up calling us, as do the limpers. We have a pot of 16 big blinds here. With this, I think it's a typical open in position. The limpers, since it wasn't that big of a raise, once the first one called, like dominoes, they're all going to call. That's why I think in hindsight, if I make it a little bigger, I might not get as many calls. I might get it to heads up, maybe three-way instead of going four-way. But hindsight's always 20/20. And in this situation, we're going four ways to a flop. That flop comes out pretty good for us. It comes queen of hearts, king of clubs, 10 of hearts. So we have second pair open-ended, and when it checks to us, we bet 5 big blinds. And when it gets to the villain in the small blind, he now check raises me to 15 big blinds. Under the gun in middle position, fold, and we decide to call because we do have some pretty strong draws here. We have a backdoor flush draw. We have an open-ended straight draw. There's a lot of ways for us to improve here, so we're not going anywhere quite yet, especially not for just 10 more big blinds. So we make the call. There's 31 bigs in the pot, and we see the ace of clubs on the turn. Perfect card for us. We now have Broadway. We now have the nuts. There's no way that we're beat by anything here. And when the villain bets out 20 big blinds, we have decision point. We could just call here and try and trap. This guy's been somewhat active, and we think that even if he doesn't improve to anything, the odds are either we're chopping, which is a possibility, or we're well ahead. So we don't want to scare him off if we're well ahead. We want to get another bet out of him if we are able to on the river. With all this in mind, we don't want to let the fish off the hook yet. So we decide to just call, even though there's that heart flush draw out there. We decide to take the calculated risk that if a blank comes off, that we're going to be able to get at least one more bet out of him. And when he bets, we'll be able to raise because worst case scenario, we're chopping if he both have jack. If not, we might be able to get a call out of a hand like, ace king, king queen, queen 10, any kind of two pair or set type hands might be able to call a river raise. That river ends up coming the perfect card, the 10 of clubs. We have a royal flush. Perfect, 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 perfect card. We couldn't ask for any better because it also pairs the board. So all of his sets now have improved to a boat, and we'll definitely call off any jam that we put out here because there's no way he's going to put us on a royal. There's no way to ever put anybody on a royal unless they physically just go nuts and are shaking. It's you never put someone on a royal because if you have a full house, you're just thinking, I want to pile money in here. So when the villain leads out for 30 big blinds, leaving himself only 41 bigs behind, it just, for us, is a minute of making it look good and then shoving. The villain instantly calls and turns over queen of spades, 10 of spades for a rivered full house. We turn over our royal, and he is just gobsmacked. His jaw drops so fast, you couldn't believe it. And the fact of the matter is, again, this is just another cooler because he outflopped us, we outdrew him, and then we outturned him, or rivered him because we rivered the nuts versus his second nuts, pretty much second nuts. Uh, it's one of those hands that plays itself. Is he going to get away from a boat with 41 bigs behind in a pot of over 150 bigs? No, he's going to call that off all the time. He had like a quarter pot size bet left. He's never going to fold there with a full house. It's one of those scenarios where if I have pocket aces, pocket kings, or the royal flush, so be it. That's not that many hands that are beating him versus the fact of the matter that I could be doing this with a lower flush. I could be doing this with a worse full house. Well, probably not a worse full house because there is no worse full house. It would either be a chop if I had, the case 10 and another queen. But in some scenarios, there might be a lower full house. The fact of the matter is, this is another one that just you chalk it up to a cooler, you chalk it up to variance. I hit the one out on the river that gets me the nuts and him a really strong second best hand where he has to pay me off. So, which one of these hands was live and which one was online? I think most people would try and say that the Royal Flush was online because they always go for online being rigged and trying to juice pots for rake and this and that. But in actuality, that hand with the royal flush was the live hand. And to make matters even worse for the gentleman, it was at Parks when they were doing a high hand promotion. So not only did I turn over the royal, stack him, I got to immediately put my hand up and yell high hand. And the floor comes over, sees that it's a royal, they announce that it's a royal, and the whole room lets out the collective groan of knowing this high hand period's over because at Parks, it's the first hand that hits a royal gets paid for that half hour no matter what because you can't beat the current high hand and they don't go by suits. So it's not like someone could make a spades royal and beat my clubs royal. It's you have to beat the current high hand. And if somebody hits a royal, that half hour is over and you get paid right away. So the fact of the matter is variance comes live and online. Does it come online more often? Only because of the extra volume does it come more often online, not because of any kind of juicing, rigging, or any kind of shenanigans from the sites. The sites are making money hand over fist from just rake alone. They don't need to juice it. They don't need to do anything to up the ante because that just puts their position of the hand over fist money making at jeopardy because I live in a state, Pennsylvania, which regulates online gaming, including poker. So if they're doing something that's going to mess with that, they risk the chance of losing their license and losing that cash cow, which why would you ever shoot the golden goose just to have a meal? You have to think in terms of the best interest long term. And the fact of the matter is, even if people think it's a bot playing for the site, my $50 or whatever is peanuts compared to what they're making in rake every hour. So why in the world would they risk losing hundreds of dollars an hour for 20 bucks from some random guy online? It's not going to happen. There's no rational reason for it. The people who subscribe to these conspiracy theories are probably also the ones that believe in QAnon and all those other crazy conspiracy theories, and the fact is, you're not going to convince them otherwise. Their mind's made up. Just let them be, let them live in their own little bubble, and just know the best way to get better quicker is definitely online. If you have access to online, you can play lower stakes, but bring your mentality to the game. That's why I advocate playing in big blinds instead of dollars because you can translate your big blind play to your cash game table where you're playing 1-3 or 2-5 and take the same mindset back and forth. Because if you're thinking about it in terms of blinds as in terms of dollars and pennies, it'll make that thinking process more streamlined for you in the long run. Thanks for checking out the video. If you liked what you saw, please like and subscribe, grow the channel, and help us out a lot. You can also find out more about what I'm doing in the creator space at pokerpunx.com. We do this as both YouTube videos and as a podcast. And also, I do some other stuff with music as well at Poker Punx Music. You could check that out at Poker Punx Music on Twitter, Instagram, all the different social media sites. And as always, run it up the punks.